I'd like to remind everyone that we're using the updated models for the game, and that there are different character models for all the characters and for all the scenes. Maybe at some point, as we're getting closer to the end of this chapter. Oh my god, that's so loud. Maybe I could just fast forward through the game again and follow the old models turned on so we can all see what that's like. But I'm not going to play through the whole game, I'm just saying. There are alternative models for all the... I mean, we could reload this with the... Welcome to Lunar D8 Fails at Menus. Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator, actively alienating everyone, in both the analog and digital world. Welcome, and good evening, wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8. I just wanted to make that apparent to everybody that there are different options for sprites. That's not what I meant. I want today to be the last day you swing that bat. I'm sorry. It took me some time to understand what she was asking for. What's wrong with swinging a bat? Why? It's none of your business, is it? I'm not bothering anyone, am I? You are. Mion said it flat out. This didn't make any sense, and that was really irritating. When did I bother anybody? Mion was at a loss for words, but she finally made up her mind and spoke, though she stuttered as she said it. Because, Kei-chan? That's someone else's bat. You shouldn't borrow it without permission. It was left behind by a student who transferred, right? I'm just borrowing it until he comes back for it. Huh? Yeah. He transferred. Mion grew uncharacteristically flustered. That made it all too clear that his transfer was a lie. But strange, isn't it? For the older brother to transfer by himself, while his little sister stayed behind. Mion couldn't hide her reaction as my words shook her up. Kei-chan, you knew? Satoshi Hojo. Sotoko's older brother, right? The one demoned away last year? Unable to respond to that, Mion fell silent. Rena asked the same thing. Why did you start swinging that bat? She told me Satoshi did the same thing, practicing his swings right before he went missing. So, is this some kind of omen for Oyashiro-sama's curse? Shh! Mion panicked and looked around. Please, Kei-chan, don't mention Oyashiro-sama so recklessly. I don't believe in it, but the others very much do. Rena especially. Dangerously so? Anyway, she seems angry. You know, I am curious as to what that looks like as the other sprite. So we'll just go to close, menu, turn to main menu, yes. Config, original, close, continue, load, yes. I'll say this, I like the anime version much better, but this isn't bad. It's definitely a very stylistic choice. This is definitely what the author was going for and their original vision for this before it became an anime show. Each have their own merits. I'm just more used to the other anime style. I think most people become introduced to this show via the anime. So, I suppose it'd be like kind of like if you watched only Dragon Ball Super and then you went back to watch, you know, a fan animation of somebody else or just the original Dragon Ball. It would be very different because the original Dragon Ball had a lot more focus on comedy. It was still action, but it was... How would all of you describe it? I'm just saying this. This isn't bad. This is not bad by any means. I still like it, and it's definitely its own aesthetic style. And it definitely gives it a very unique flavor, so to speak. But I'm just more used to the anime version of it, but I still say I like this. I think this picture is cool. I think this art style is cool. But not the version I'm wanting to play. If given the option of the anime version, which I'm glad they put that in there, I prefer that. But like I said, I don't want to say that the other version is bad. It's just not my flavor. Like I said, I don't think I've ever had an actual pork bone and ginger flavored ramen. I'm certain it's a good ramen, but I don't think it... I think most times I'd prefer, shrimp or chicken or beef. Or like steak flavor or something like that, But I'm glad we have the options. I thought I changed that. I guess I didn't click on it? Okay. Anyway, you're scaring everyone. What, by being athletic? I have to stop being fat at some point. If you're just fooling around, then stop it. You have to stop acting like Satoshi. I was the one who was scared. Who did I have to thank for taking up this bat in the first place? But it still unsettled me knowing that my actions were overlapping with Satoshi's. It would be one thing if someone suggested it, but I thought I was making my own decisions. I'll say this now. I don't know anything about Satoshi. After all, you didn't tell me anything about him. But we didn't mean to hide it. Didn't you? You were hiding the incidents that happened every year, weren't you? That's because we didn't want to, you didn't want to scare me. That's your reason for leaving me out? No, we didn't mean to. Mian, I asked you directly if something happened at the dam, didn't I? And you told me nothing happened. When someone was dismembered and murdered, you lied to me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to lie to you. Didn't you? Friends don't hide things from each other, right? Isn't that right? Then you all aren't my friends. Kei-chan, Mian looked helpless and flustered. Was I imagining the tears in her eyes? I never could have imagined Mian acting like this. Oh, by the way, those get well mochi you brought the other day, they were good. I thought I was going to bleed. Who did it? You? Or Rena? Me? She admitted it so easily. I couldn't help but be surprised at how easy that was. You could have killed me. How could you do that to a friend? But it was just a little prank. Mian gave me a wry smile, mixed with confusion, causing even more anger to well up inside me. You think that was a prank? I grabbed Mian by the collar and lifted her up. That wasn't the same as putting Tabasco sauce in a piece of mochi. It was a needle, a sewing needle. If I had swallowed that and it lodged in my throat, what did she think would happen? Mian's face froze as her body rattled in fear. This wasn't the Mian Sonozaki I knew anymore. Anyways, you're not my friend. There's no reason for me to listen to anyone who's not my friend. So just leave me alone for a while. Got it? Mian wasn't replying anymore. It won't be that easy to erase me, you know. The cops have been on to you from the start, so don't think you can make me disappear like you did Satoshi. I said it clearly. This was my declaration of war. I think you guys are suspect in the previous incidents, too. I also know you've spent a lot of time with the cops ever since the anti-dam movement. Don't think you can hide it from me, got that? How? How did you know? How did you know? Mion stood there with a dumbstruck look on her face. That was when I heard the principal ringing the bell for school. It was time for morning homeroom. Let's go. The class representative needs to be there, right? That moment, for the first time, I realized Mion was sobbing as tears ran down her cheeks. You're so mean, Kei-chan. Me. I wanted to console her, but I shut my mouth. I had no need to feel guilty. I'm going. Don't be late for homeroom. I left Mion still shaking as I turned around to head for the entrance. I had no idea how troubling it was to make a girl cry. Behind my back I could hear her muttering. It was a faint mutter as she was speaking to herself. So that's how it is, huh? She wasn't saying it to anyone. It was Mion talking to herself, but it was a sobbing voice that had a kind of giddy, cursing tone. I had inadvertently stopped and turned back toward her. So it was that bastard. He leaked it all to Kei-chan. She balled up her fists as her tears continued to rain down. She glared at a spot on the ground with a terrifying, yet smiling face, cursing. A chill ran down my spine from that demonic expression. This transformation, Mion's transformation, was different from Rena's. I should have killed him back then. He forgot the mercy I showed him because he was going to retire this year. Retiring this year. Was she talking about Oshi-san? Damn it. Damn it. I'm going to kill that damn old man. It felt like the air itself had begun distorting. With Mion at the center, the world had begun to twist and spiral, bending, whirling. This was the first time I had experienced such a visage. Rise. Attention. Mion made an excuse for her red eyes by saying there was something wrong with her contacts. After that, neither Rena nor Mion spoke to me for the rest of the day. Neither Satoko or Rika-chan looked me in the eye. Strangely, I didn't feel hurt. Everything had just went back to the way it always was. The month since I transferred in had been almost too much fun. That was all. School was supposed to be something like this to begin with. I should have disliked that feeling, but today it felt oddly refreshing. The bell rung, sounding the end of the monotonous school day, which had felt so tense, yet so dull, since it would cause a lot of unpleasant memories. If they asked me to join in the club activities, I promptly started preparing to go home without even looking at them. I stuffed the contents of my desk into my bag, wrapped my hand around Satoshi's now familiar bat, and began heading towards the entrance. I was assailed by both the exhausting relief that nothing had happened today and the tiring possibility of the same thing repeating tomorrow. But deep down inside me, far beneath, in the recesses of my heart, achingly I knew this would be the last day of this cycle. I couldn't tell how the ending would be, whether it would end as I wished it to end, or if it would end as I hoped it wouldn't. Regardless, in my current state, there was something more important than how things would end. There was something I wanted to know. Why did I have to be killed? How did it come to this? Why? For what purpose? The sunlight was relentless. The sun, the heat, even the air. They wouldn't give me my answers. Or could it be that the cries of the Higurashi were desperately trying to tell me something? Somewhere mixed in with their shrieks, Tomotaki-san and Satoshi were also probably trying to tell me something. I simply haven't been able to realize it yet. When I do realize it, I wonder if I will be amongst the Higurashis, fruitlessly crying to the next victim. Glancing down at my feet, I saw Higurashi on its back, spasming weakly. Bui, bui, bui. I'm imagining imperfect cell. There was still much of the summer left, yet this one was already chirping its last song. I couldn't tell what it was saying, no matter how hard I listened, but I had to try. I had to try to listen to what it was desperately trying to tell me. At that moment, the shrills of the Higurashi ceased all at once, as if they had all huddled together, fearing that the person who'd brought them to their dreadful fate had arrived. There was no mistaking it. A presence was approaching. The sound of footsteps was almost non-existent. If the Higurashi hadn't warned me by ending their chirping, I wouldn't have noticed. My exhaustion left me in a heartbeat. In its place was a rush of adrenaline that sharpened all of my senses. I was just barely able to hold back that creeping, suffocating feeling of horror. It wasn't something that I could hold back for long, but in this moment when I needed to be razor sharp, I was able to retain my composure. I wasn't going to shout like I did yesterday. I hid myself calmly amongst the trees, waiting for my pursuer's shadow. Could I get them to pass by me? No. Since I was able to hear their footsteps, they were probably also able to hear mine. They might have already been able to tell that I'd hidden myself and was holding my breath. The person telling me wasn't Rena, just like yesterday. If it was Rena, I wouldn't hold back. I could just yell at her and make her go away, like yesterday. If it wasn't Rena, it would depend on how they acted, I guess. The footsteps ambled closer. I swallowed, wiped my clammy hands on my pants, and readjusted the grip on the bat. I could tell that the fear that I had beaten back once was now waiting for another opening to come at me. Who could it be? I peeked out from behind the tree at the person following me. My imagination hadn't led me astray. It was Rena. There was a bit of relief as I realized it was someone I knew, but that feeling left me in an instant. This wasn't the same Rena that I knew. Her eyes were dark and lifeless. But her mouth appeared as if it was carved into a crescent. Yes, it looked like she was grinning slightly. And in her right hand was an axe. I hid myself behind the tree once again and recalled the unbelievable sight I just saw. What was that just now? The embodiment of terror laid bare. Baseball practicing my swing. There were tons of excuses for me to be carrying a bat, but for that axe, there was no excuse for that. An axe just like that. Keiichi-kun, are you playing hide and seek, I wonder? I wonder. My heart was pounding. Hard enough that I had trouble breathing. What little composure I had been able to hold on to was now crushed. In its place, cold sweat gushed forth, covering my entire body, letting me know precisely what kind of emotion had taken hold. Not good. Not good, not good. I wasn't able to hide myself completely. So you already knew I was here. Were you trying to scare me, I wonder? I wonder. I decided that it would be better to reveal myself now, since there was still space between us, than to allow Rena to come any closer. I adjusted my grip on the bat again, readied myself mentally, and stepped out from behind the tree. Ah ha 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 ha. I found you, Keiichi-kun. Rena was pleased that she found me, eliciting a mysterious giggle. Her mouth was smiling, but her eyes told me she was displeased with the fact that I had been hiding. Those eyes, they were just so empty. My legs began to quiver. Not good. In the pit of my stomach, some sort of viscous, hot and cold substance began spreading around. If I allowed it, that substance would slip into my bloodstream, undoubtedly freeze all the organs in my body. Not good. Not good. I'll be devoured by Rena at this rate. Strike back. Don't lose. What is it? I blustered, hiding behind my bravado. But Rena didn't flinch one bit. Just the same as Keiichi-kun. I'm heading home. Then what about that axe? Then what about the bat you're holding? I'm practicing my swing. Then I'm treasure hunting. Rena gave a flippant explanation as to why she had such a fearsome weapon. To treasure hunting. At the treasure mountain near the dam site, I found a new cute thing. So I needed this to dig it out. How could I believe that? You wouldn't believe it, would you? Ha ha. Rena's laugh was so obviously very strange. I'd seen Rena's transformation many times before, but the one today was completely different. Like her mischievous tone and the shrewd glint in her eyes. It wasn't something that roundabout. I'm not sure what to say, it was just so obvious. Wait, Keiichi-kun? Ha ha ha. Rena didn't stop walking, even as she let out that eerie laugh. Whenever Rena got too close to me, I would scurry away and turn back toward her. This cycle repeated, over and over. No matter how you looked at it, I was being chased by Rena and was trying to escape. Don't follow me. I can't do that. My house is this way, after all. Ah ha ha ha. When I met with Rena on this road yesterday, she cowered and trembled as she followed my commands. But today was different. Rena didn't show a hint of trepidation. Actually, wasn't I the one who was cowering? If the way home for Rena and me was the same, that's fine. I'd just change my route. That'd work out, wouldn't it? I turned onto a side street I had never been down and knew little about. But Rena saw me do that and followed me while laughing. Why? Why? Aren't you going home? Then just go home down the street you normally do. Why would you follow me down this weird little side road? Those thoughts screamed in my head, eventually spilling out of my mouth. But why are you following me? The tone of my voice was already tinged with terror. Because I want to talk to Keiichi-kun. Keiichi-kun wants to talk to Rena too, doesn't he? Doesn't he? I don't know what to talk about. Anything. I don't want to talk about anything with you. That's a lie, isn't it? There's something you want to ask me about, isn't there? Not at all. I have nothing to talk to you about. That's a lie, isn't it? It's not a lie. Lies. Rena's scream echoed, startling some nearby birds into flight. I cringed in fear. The only other thing I could do was increase my pace. Let's talk, Keiichi-kun. Talk. Talk. Ha 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 ha. Why was I running down this unfamiliar deserted street? Doesn't Keiichi-kun have something he's worried about? Nothing at all. I'm not worried about anything. Lies. Laughing noises. Even though I was running, even though Rena was walking, why wasn't I getting any further away? I know. I really do know. You're scared, aren't you, Keiichi-kun? I'm not scared. I'm not scared of anything. Lies. Ah ha ha. My breathing grew heavy and I felt like my legs were giving out from beneath me. Rena wasn't even breaking a sweat. I'll listen. This time I'll listen. I had no idea what she was talking about, or what exactly she wanted to do. This time I'll listen. It will be different from the time with Satoshi-kun. When she said Satoshi's name, I turned back for a moment, but even as I did, Rena was still advancing. I couldn't afford to stop. Satoshi-kun was worried too. It looked like he was having such a hard time, but I didn't listen. I was so sad. Where did the street connect to? All these twists and turns, ups and downs. It was hard to believe this was even remotely in the direction toward my house. My sense of direction had long since gone out the window. I really regretted it when Satoshi-kun transferred out. I thought that if I had listened, he may not have transferred out. I really regretted that. The road led me deeper into the forest. Wasn't I getting further away from the village the more I ran? I lost more and more of my composure the more I thought about it. But despite this realization, my inner self was still disturbingly calm. So you see, I vowed that if there was someone struggling with Satoshi-kun dead, I'd save them. I don't want to see anyone transfer out again. Damn it. What does transfer even mean? I won't let you transfer me. I won't end up the same as Satoshi. Come on, Keiichi-kun, talk to me. I'll be able to understand you, Keiichi-kun. I'm your ally. I started wheezing and out of breath. My lungs were so hot that they felt they were going to explode, and my heart was beating as hard as it possibly could. I should have practiced running instead of my swing. I couldn't even afford to scoff at that stupid thought. If Keiichi-kun doesn't have anything to worry about, he'll go back to normal. Everyone will be back to being friends, and we can enjoy club activities again. Next time we'll team up and beat Mi-chan. Yeah, how about how much fun that would be? Rena couldn't even imagine how much I'd wished I could turn back the clock on these past few days. You could be nice to me again, too. I want to go back to searching for treasure. Again. This time, I'll prepare a nice lunch. Actually, we could just go right now. Let's go to the dam site together. I'll show you the cute thing I just found. Is it a dead body? I'm sure you'll like it too. Haha. My footsteps made pathetic flapping sounds as my legs wobbled and faltered. Hot on my heels, Rena's steps were sharply breaking twigs underfoot. I had to accept it. I was on the run being chased by Rena. If she caught me, it was all over. I realized it instinctively. I couldn't even begin to think of what the end would entail. Just that if I was caught, it was all over. That's all I knew. It didn't matter how it was going to end. I wouldn't let it end. Not without knowing anything, not yet. That momentary lapse was all it took. Of all the things that could have happened, my knees buckled underneath me, and I crumbled towards the ground. I tried to stand frantically, urging my legs to respond. I used my bat as a makeshift cane to prop myself up, but Red was already standing right in front of me. Compared to me, out of breath and utterly exhausted, Ren was so cool and composed that she could have froze the air around her. She wasn't breathing hard at all. Rather, I couldn't even sense if her heart was beating. Are you afraid of something, I wonder? It's not like you to tremble, Keiichi-kun. Her expression looked almost affectionate. Those soulless eyes, that mask of affection. As she admonished me for trembling, Rena's hands deftly slipped over her head. The blur of arms as they moved made me feel as if I was staring at the godliness of the thousand-armed Buddha. Then as both of her hands met above her head, that axe that she held came into focus. I stared up at it in disbelief. It was all I could do. Tell me, what happened to Satoshi? Rena stayed like that, with the axe raised above her head, and solemnly opened her mouth. It was as if she was expressing a farewell to a friend that she was never to see again. That cruel scenario resided somewhere in her actions. I told you. Satoshi-kun transferred. Out. Enough of the transfer crap. It means demoned away, doesn't it? Doesn't it? You can tell me now, can't you? Who made Satoshi disappear? Was it you? Mion? Or someone in the village? Answer me. I became frantic the more I screamed, but Rena did nothing, but maintained that smile frozen on her face. I have no idea what Keiichi-kun is talking about. Then I'll say in a way you do. Who is the perpetrator of this chain of mysterious deaths? You seem to be confused, Keiichi-kun. What? There is no human perpetrator. Everything is by Oyashiro-sama's will. Isn't Oyashiro-sama's curse just a superstition? You believe in that too? It's not about believing or not. Oyashiro-sama exists. Period. Rena's gaze grew even more galed. The ferocity of her stare was so intense, not allowing me to question anything. There's just no way that something like Oyashiro-sama could even exist. You don't believe in Oyashiro-sama? There is no way I could believe it. There's no way it could exist. It exists. Oyashiro-sama exists. Keiichi-kun should have felt it personally. I never felt something like that. Keiichi-kun, haven't you felt someone apologizing to you before? Constantly. On top of that, all noise from the outside world disappeared. Only Rena's voice resounded loudly and terribly. You see, until you forgive them, they'll always be with you. At school, at home, at your bedside. I couldn't understand what Rena was saying. It came to me too. Oyashiro-sama did. That's why I transferred, and came back to Hinamizawa. I don't understand. I don't understand. What does transfer even mean? What was Rena saying? Hasn't Oyashiro-sama came to you as well, Keiichi-kun? I'm probably the only one you can confide in. I won't let you transfer out. Okay? Rena's demanded laughter clanged around inside my head. Was Rena saying Oyashiro-sama came to her as well? That's right. Last night I had heard about when I asked Rena. Please keep this confidential. Also, part of this may be speculation. Not all of it may be true. Are you still interested? Oyashiro-sama began speaking. Neither the victims nor the school filed a complaint, so there's no preliminary report. Basically, the police hadn't intervened in this matter. So all of these details are just what I heard from those involved, meaning it's not that credible. You said there were victims. Didn't Rena just break all the windows? No, Rena Ryuga attacked 3 boys, using a metal bat. 2 of them made it out with only bruises, but the other had been injured so badly that one of his eyes was permanently damaged. Wouldn't that be considered assault? Shouldn't the police have arrested her? For whatever reason, the victim never pressed charges. There were no report to the police, so they were beaten with a bat and suffered significant injuries. Normally there would be a criminal investigation. But why didn't they press charges? I tried asking 3 male victims for their side of the story, but they all were very reluctant. It's hard to say, but they were all afraid. Even after she had transferred schools. Oishi-san, could you summarize it starting from the beginning? Rena hit people while she broke the windows, or was it she started breaking the windows after she got bored of hitting people? They sounded similar, but the meanings were drastically different. On an undisclosed date, Rena Ryuga was conversing with 3 male students, close friends of hers, near the pool storage shed. Who were those 3? I can't reveal their names, but they were close to Rena Ryuga, and it seems that they were a group of friends. She was the lone girl in their group. So wasn't that strange for the 4 of them to be together? What happened? I don't know the reason why. She took the baseball team's bat that was there in the pool storage shed and beat the 3 of them down, one after the other. What? There were no witnesses? This was an account pieced together by information given at the time of the incident. One day, after school, Rena and the 3 male students were at the pool storage shed talking together. They weren't seeking help, rather they usually met up there. It appears it became a heated discussion. At the time, Rena underwent a change. The change was so abrupt that the 3 of them didn't comprehend what was happening. Then, taking the metal bat, she attacked her friends one after the other. Leaving her friends covered in blood, with gashes on their heads, she made her way towards the school building. Then she broke the glass windows one after the other. A few minutes later, a teacher appeared on the scene and subdued her. What was this change Rena underwent? What matches up in the statements from the 3 was a sudden change, the point where there was a transformation. Transformation? I also could recall Rena's transformation. I had seen that change many times before. It was so different from the usual Rena that I couldn't help but believe it was someone else who looked like Rena. That transformation they've talked about, had it happened before? No. There was nothing like that. As far as I could find out in her medical history and past, there was nothing like that. Does that happen often where people change suddenly like Rena did? Of course it does. There are plenty of psychological phenomena that could cause something like that. Then you're saying that this was a dormant element in Rena that caused that transformation? I cannot say that for certain, but according to the statements of her friends, it's hard to believe that she had such a side to her. Kind, caring, and adorable. Even before she transferred here, she was probably pretty popular in school, like she was now. That girl transforming suddenly and assaulting them with a bat, who could imagine such a thing? Nobody could have seen it coming. I myself sometimes believe that I was mistaken for thinking that was Rena, even now. Then, what happened after that? There was a hospital right across from the school, so the three of them were carried and treated quickly. What about Rena? What about the police? Why wasn't there a criminal investigation? You see, the police can't get involved unless they are called. Even though one was badly injured with permanent damage, why didn't they file charges? That's what caught my attention as well. Either some threat or pressure was placed on them, or they had a reason they couldn't file charges even if they wanted to. We're talking about you, after all. Of course you looked into it, didn't you? Well, yeah, but I told you at the beginning I didn't die. That the victims were all very reluctant to talk. They didn't want to touch on the matter, or rather they didn't want to be involved. Reluctant to talk. Didn't want to touch it. Didn't want to be involved. It resembled the villagers here in Oyashiro-sama's curse. Did the teacher at the school tell you anything? A school is a hallowed ground. You could say they tend to keep scandals under wrap. I didn't have a search warrant, so I had to tread lightly, you see. Then, there was no comment from the school. No. They denied the incident ever happened. It's just 3 male students were carried in for blunt force trauma that day. That's all there was in the hospital records. The victims didn't speak, the school denied it happened. Then you don't know anything at all? Yeah. I know nothing other than the incident itself had taken place. The victims also wished that the incident be kept from the police, so if you and I both forget about it, Maburo-san, this incident will probably just fade away. For a brief period we sat in silence. At first glance it looked like it was a simple assault case, but that was just the tip of the iceberg. The depths were obscured by roiling waves, sinking quietly into the void, as if it never existed to begin with. After that she was suspended by the school, and during that time she underwent psychiatric counseling. Did you hear anything from the doctor? Again, they were very professional in regards to their ethics, or at least, very tight-lipped. Nothing even after you showed them your badge. I was told to get a warrant. The badge itself has no legally binding authority after all. Then how did you know that Rena confessed that it was Oyashiro-sama who did it? There was a nurse I asked in that department. She agreed to help me just from showing my badge. Then, what did she say? Turns out the nurse hadn't heard everything. Apparently all she remembered was that she had overheard from inside the room. The nurse said at the time Renryu was very calm and mild-mannered. It was more like she was confessing her sins at church than a counseling session. She spoke with her mother there for some of it, but partway through her mother was asked to leave. So it became a private counseling session between just the doctor and Rena for a while. The part where Oyashiro-sama, when did that pop up? Partway through, she screamed the name suddenly. That startled the nurse, and that's why she started listening in. It was Oyashiro-sama. Rena suddenly shouted that. I had no idea what was said before, so I had no idea what was the meaning behind it could have been. The doctor calmly and collectedly asked Rena to have a seat. So either Rena has a split personality, or she's actually being possessed by some sort of ghost, spirit, god, person. Heck, we should ask Rika what to do. She's like the loli priestess of this faith, like of this private Shinto religion. Or it's Mion involved with the elders of the village as some sort of, I don't know, forest mafia. What is this Oyashiro-sama you speak of? Gently, ever so gently. The fundamentals of the counseling were believing what you were told. Whoever abandons Hinamizawa will be hunted down by Oyashiro-sama, and they've finally gotten to me. That's the town you lived in before you moved here, isn't that right, Ryuga-san? I didn't want to move, but because of my mom and dad's circumstances we had to, but Oishiro-sama wouldn't allow it. Ryugo-san must have lots of friends in Hinamizawa. Even now, you must be missing them dearly, don't you think? That's another thing I remember from the show. Kaiichi-kun, Kiichi, the main character we're playing as, actually did live in Hinamizawa as a small child. After all, his parents do have a house and invest interest in building a home there. So they lived there at one point in the past too. And they travel quite frequently. So I guess it doesn't quite count the same as Draw. In Rena's case, they moved permanently. In Keiichi's case, it's more like they picked up a temporary summer home somewhere else, but he never ever truly stopped living in Hinamizawa. He just was too young to remember. Back to Hinamizawa. No, it's not that I want to go back. I have to go back. I should have gone back much sooner, but now it's too late. Oishiro-sama has come. Oishiro-sama is the name of the god in Hinamizawa, isn't that right? I'd say depends on how long you go. We'll see. Everyone knows that Hinamizawa's garden deity, and if you ever try to ban Hinamizawa, you'll incur his wrath. You had moved quite a while ago, didn't you? Then it was just now that the god had arrived, is what you're saying? You might not believe me, but Oishiro-sama exists. That nurse was then asked by another nurse to do something and left the room. That was all she remembered. That it was Oishiro-sama's doing, right? I do believe that there is that kind of superstition in Hinamizawa, that if you leave the village that you incur Oishiro-sama's wrath. You should be familiar with this part, Mamoru-san. I knew very well that those scorned by the village incurred. To hinder the dam construction project, they cursed the construction foreman to death. Then, the following year, Setsuko's parents, supporters, and leading advocates for the dam were cursed to their death. But this was the first time I heard about the curse incurred by leaving the village. This is my first time hearing that. I can understand outside threats being cursed with the village, but why also villagers who leave? Normally, people who leave the village aren't supposed to be cursed, right? I know it's a bit strange to say it, but I could see it as a rule that the people who come in are the ones who would be cursed. Far from Jupiter, far from his thunder. Curses weren't something to chase after people that leave, were they? Oishiro-san pondered it for a bit. Over and under the other side of the receiver, began to speak. Well, I told you long ago that Hinamizawa was called Onagafushi, didn't I? I recalled hearing that. Long ago, Hinamizawa was feared and respected as a village of ogres. The villagers at the foot of the mountains worshipped the ogres. So Onagafushi was hallowed ground that you could never enter. It came to be said that if you entered it carelessly, you were cursed by Oishiro-sama. Those who set foot in Onagafushi, in other words, Hinamizawa, would be cursed. I could understand that. I know that. But for leaving to also be no good, that's... Also the ogres, you see. They were being strictly watched by Oishiro-sama, so they would not enter in our world. In other words, Oishiro-sama probably restricted interaction in Onagafushi and the rest of the world. I see. I finally understood what sort of thing Oishiro-sama was. A warden. Yep. So basically Oishiro-sama is more like a warden than a protectorate deity, I guess. Trying to keep this place isolated from the rest of the world. After all, the warden's not really a protector of the prisoner, just has to keep the peace. I guess that's how it would seem. I'm sorry, I didn't know very much myself. This is mostly what was passed on to me from my grandmother. I could understand it was a bit better than it was like that. Those who came to Hinamizawa would be cursed, and those who tried to leave would also be cursed. So because Rena originally lived in Hinamizawa and moved away, she fulfilled the requirements for being cursed. So that means because Rena moved away against its wishes, she was cursed by Oishiro-sama. Is that what it amounts to? In short, that seems to be what it points to, I guess. As a matter of fact, soon afterwards, they did move back to Hinamizawa after all. And it might be something in the water, or something that we eat here. I mean, we do have some unique vegetables. What can I say? If you ever go to a cursed place, don't eat the food there. Don't drink the water. Unless it's perfectly bottled and sealed, and even then, caution. Those who abandon Hinamizawa and left were cursed. But then why only Rena? Shouldn't Rena's parents also be guilty of some transgression by moving away and have been cursed? Also, in this day and age, Japan, shouldn't there be a lot of people coming and going? If every single one of them was cursed, then it'd be insane. But in reality, it wasn't that big a deal at all. At most, there would be one person dying and disappearing on the day of Hotanagashi. I don't like saying at most, though. Well, anyways, there's a lot I still don't know. Even if it was Oshiro-sama's curse, it doesn't add up as to why her classmates, the victims who were beaten with a metal bat, would press charges. You don't think the victims were cowering because they believed that a terrible curse had befallen, do you? Of course I didn't want to believe it. But more importantly, I just realized something else. There was another bizarre connection that Rena made between Oshiro-sama's curse and metal bats. Satoshi fell victim to Oshiro-sama's curse and went missing. I had recently learned that Satoshi had also become infatuated with the metal bat right before he disappeared, just like me. Then Rena as well. She was affected by Oshiro-sama's curse. She confessed that much to the doctor. And the weapon that she had used at the time was horrendous act was again a metal bat. And finally me. I had encountered various things that were inexplicable, and now I was holding onto a metal bat. I was shocked when I learned that Satoshi did the same thing. Couldn't be had the same thing happen to Rena. But there was also one critical difference between her and Satoshi's case. That being Satoshi went missing after falling victim to the curse, but Rena was still here. Both of them had fallen victim to Oshiro-sama's curse, yet they were met with different endings. And finally me. I couldn't call it a coincidence anymore. Rena, Satoshi, and finally me. Could it be that I really was under Oshiro-sama's curse right now? No, more important than that, what should I do now? Satoshi had been demoned away, vanishing without a trace. Rena was fine. Fine? Rena had undergone a change. I could only believe that there was something that wasn't Rena residing within her. And here right now it was standing before me. Rena, please tell me. What will happen to me? Rena stood imposingly, not answering. Satoshi disappeared, but Rena didn't disappear. So, what will happen to me? I had never heard such an unpleasant laugh before. It had become akin to the sound of her breathing. It was no longer a voice or an expression or a feeling. It's almost like she's hyperventilating. Which everyone's like, that's not how that works. I'm like, yes, it is. Okay? There are times I've hyperventilated, particularly when I was a small child, in which, well, it would become a laughing fit sort of thing, mixed with crying sort of stuff. And the problem is, the issue of hyperventilation is your body's getting too much oxygen. So basically, it would make you feel very lightheaded. You feel almost like you're going to pass out, but you also can't. And you also can't really move or walk in a coordinated manner. Basically, the best way to describe it is the way you see people when they're very drunk and can't walk, but imagine it's much more than that. I guess the best way to describe the feeling is, because while I am not a person who drinks alcohol, I have drank alcohol before. Like I tried some when I was like 24. So I at least understand what the feeling of being drunk is, though I can't say I ever got super, super drunk. I will say this. It's not like that. It's far more pronounced. It's like, I've been on a roller coaster before, and it's like that level of, and you're able to at least keep standing, but you're breathing much faster than you can control, and you can't stop it. Technically, a lot of times when you do in this industry, you give someone a paper bag, which obviously putting your head in a bag or putting a bag over your mouth can suffocate somebody under normal and kill them under normal circumstances. But if you're hyperventilating, the issue is you're getting too much oxygen, so you have to keep breathing the same air, because that's why people die if you like restrict their put a bag over someone's head or some bullshit, because they'll die because you're lowering the amount of oxygen content in the air. But in this situation, it's actually good medical advice because the person's getting too much oxygen. So you have to abnormally lower the amount of oxygen in the air to get the person back to normal. It's kind of like the idea of sometimes a person could have too much or too little sugar or too much or too little salt, to where a person can be under or overhydrated. You become dehydrated, but you also become overhydrated. Same way, too hot, too cold. you can also have too much oxygen. There's a certain, and granted, there are people in which you abnormally raise the level of oxygen, hence oxygen masks and tanks and stuff. But that's for people that are having a deficiency in absorbing oxygen correctly out of the air, so they need the assistance. But in the same regard, there are some times where a person is just, they're respirating, inhaling too much oxygen. Their lungs are getting too much oxygen. And the human body, it's kind of like the idea of Earth and being a habitable zone in the galaxy, in the solar system. If Earth had too much or too little atmosphere, or too much, too little magnets, gravity, changes in the water composition, the way biology behaved, or even just if we're just a tiny bit closer or further away from the sun, Earth wouldn't be able to support life. Heck, if the sun were just a little bit hotter or colder, if we're just a little bit bigger or smaller, it's just the same way the human body. While we can be resilient, the main thing is the human body is, there are so many things that are so complicated. Heck, it's amazing when you look at the universe just in terms of scale of size. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the galactic filaments, or things called like the pillars of creation. But the pillars of creation is a name of a sort of cosmic entity, because humans have the tendency to name things just to make it easier to identify. You know, landmarks and stuff. It's kind of how we handled GPS before GPS. You'd have maps and you'd basically take a map, draw out where you're going to go, you'd write down a list of all the turns you have to make, and you'd try to memorize it. And you sometimes would think of certain landmarks along the way, then make it easier. It's kind of like a mnemonic device, like PEMDAS, to help you remember mathematic formulas and things like that. Or kind of like how you'll remember like the story segments of, say, Dragon Ball Z by separating it into sagas. Like the Saiyan Saga, the Namek Saga, the Ginyu Saga, the Frieza Saga, Garlic Jr. Saga, Trunks Saga, Android Saga, Imperfect Cell Saga, Semi-Perfect Cell Saga, Perfect Cell Saga, Cells Games, the Otherworld Tournament, the Great Saiyaman Saga, the New Tournament Saga, the Babidi Saga, the Majin Buu Saga, the Fusion Sagas, the Kid Buu Saga. You know, ways of just, it makes it easier to remember. Because you have too big of a group or too many small groups, it can make it confusing. But what I was saying is, IRL me has, well, honestly, from every single decade of my life, there have been dozens of incidents from every single decade of my life, and I'm 37, so technically that's 4 decades of life. But I'd say for every single, hell, if you could take it even less than that. You could say, if you could divide my group into any segment of 7 years, you could say there were dozens of things that would, well, be less than healthy from a mental standpoint. So, yeah, there's things from every grouping of 7 years, or even every grouping of 10 years of my life, from the 4 decades of my life, or, well, I mean, 7 times 6 is 42, so it's not quite that. So I've just short 6 groupings of 7 years. I mean, 7 times 5 is 35. So I'm a little bit older than that. Everyone's like, this is a weird way to use math. I'm like, I know, I'm sorry. Just saying, from every decade of my life, or even every grouping of 7 years, or whatever, there's been stuff that's been not preferable to have happened. But, you know, that's just accepting and understanding reality is an important part of growing as a person and dealing with certain psychological issues people may have. as well as coping for not only past traumas, but also as life goes on, you may encounter new traumas, and hopefully that's enough to help. It may not be. It's not a guarantee of it. It's more like it just improves the percentage chances drastically of doing better and possibly being happier and being a functioning member of society and stuff like that. But yeah, there's just... And sometimes, with titles of even videos, I can either make a joke / parody of certain things, or... And sometimes titles can be very apt descriptions of the video itself, which, even if the second condition is met, the first is still true. It's still a description in some way of what the video is about. But the second condition being that it can be a reference, a parody, if not, maybe think of it as the thing that it's referencing, I am making an outright criticism of. So I can make a statement that on its surface, if being unsupportive, would be bad, but in the stance that I'm using it air quotes, satire? Not quite sarcasm, but more so sardonic. But yeah, satire of a sort, of where I am, air quotes, openly criticizing things of the past that I disagree with and feel personally offended by. And it's me trying to make my own rational, logical argument against statements other people have made. So, but yeah, it's a convoluted mess of videos. And of course, I enjoy video games in general, but sometimes video games or anime can be reminiscent, nostalgic, no, can be a time capsule, no, can be wistful, it can be a sort of a melancholy brought from thinking about real life parallels with a unpleasant narrative in a story, and just sort of, I already said reminiscing, so ruminating, more so ruminating, and it's not a pity party so much as being pensive and trying to understand things a bit better, and just thinking about things more clearly. After all, hindsight is said to be 20/20. Even though that phrasing itself has taken on new meaning in modern year for everybody. But there were lots of issues. I've discussed them before in community posts and other videos. Nothing I can really complain about. I can't say it's that much different than, everyone else, honestly. After all, stuff isn't that big a deal, right? Or am I just in denial of myself on that? Main point being is, I think everyone has different ways of living their life, whether it's what kind of music they enjoy, how they express themselves, or how they cope or grow as a person. I do think that many video games can offer different things to different people, and many people play video games for different reasons. And I'd say it's definitely fun to play a game like Halo or Mario where you're just casually having fun. But it's also really great to have a game that has a great story. And most visual novels are, of course, driven entirely by story. And some authors are very good at, well, writing a really good story and having amazing... And like I said, I like both character sprites. Both this and the older version, I think both character sprites are really cool. And I like the art style of both. And of course, there's the backgrounds, the music. But of course, many stories can have a much deeper meaning to people. But yeah, as far as the noise she was making, at this point, an unpleasant laugh. We'll say this. It's not the same thing. I did make like a 13.5-hour video a few years ago. I deleted it because while I have made a couple videos where I did sort of a little laughing fit, it was just a brief little thing. And those were still lighthearted, if all a tiny bit sad feeling I was having during those. But they were not like the hyperventilation thing, nor were they like the 13.5-hour video. The 13.5-hour video was... I was laughing very loud at screaming volumes while screaming at the top of my lungs, while also crying very, very, very loud to the point that I was screaming and laughing at the same time, which, again, is a unique sound I was making that wasn't the same as when I hyperventilated in the past, nor was it the same as the few tiny little laugh fits that I left in, which were lighthearted. This was very unpleasant to listen to, and I have no desire to ever laugh in that way again, which I think it was the only time I ever did in my entire life. And there are sometimes I've had some small laughing fits, but they were just, albeit a bit sad, just much more lighthearted than that. Whereas I'd say the things that happened when I was younger, I would say... Like I can't really remember a youngest time with that, but I do know there was many times in elementary and middle school I had basically an overwhelming feeling of anxiety and panic, like almost like how you describe a panic attack. But the problem is I'd be hyperventilating very badly. I'd lose all coordination. I'd have to just like hold on to something to stay still, and I'd be laughing a whole lot, but I wouldn't be happy. It would be more, the best way to describe it, and it wouldn't be sad, it'd be an overwhelming feeling of anxiety, panic, fear. It was, even though there was no reason to be there was no reason for me to really be scared. At best, maybe like a small thing happened that was maybe a little bit, uncomfortable, or a bit scary, or a bit something for me to be a bit nervous about, or a situation where maybe I was suddenly put under a lot of pressure. And I mean, granted, I was a young child. I mean, it was still years until I would hit puberty. I mean, I can remember times in particular when I was like, what? I'm trying to remember. Like, I was probably like 10 years old. But I know there was times before that, up to years before it, up to years after it, where I'd have a slight issue. And of course, there'd be many other things going on. But it's more so, I guess the main emotional feeling is that you'd have a feeling of, I guess the main feeling that I had, even though there was really no reason in those circumstances, when I would start hyperventilating like that, is more of a feeling of absolute dread, absolute helplessness. It was just a feeling of anxiety, fear, panic, terror. It was just like you'd be hyperventilating, you'd be laughing to a degree, but the overwhelming feeling you had was you felt completely helpless, and you felt completely terrified and scared, as if you were about to die, and as if you were completely helpless and could do nothing, and you were just terrified and waiting for death. So, yeah, I get it. I'm a failure of a human being. So aside from me just sucking as a human, and so I get it. I fucking suck. Can't do anything right, and I'm worthless. Whatever. And there were many, many circumstances in which I'd hyperventilate with an uncontrollable laughter that I couldn't physically stop, with a feeling of like being on a roller coaster where you had to hold yourself up on something so you wouldn't fall over, and it's anxiety isn't, or nervousness isn't, the right word. It's more so an absolutely overwhelming feeling of helplessness and terror, to where you're scared out of your mind and you're expecting that you're just going to die at any moment, while laughing and breathing too heavy, feeling like you're going to pass out but not able to pass out, feeling like you're full of energy but you also can't move, and you just feel completely helpless and absolutely scared. So, yeah, I'm sure that's completely normal, and that's nothing to read into about thinking about such feelings and memories, especially in context of other things. But hey, again, these are things that are, I'm 37 now, but it's interesting to think about stuff that was basically almost 30 years ago, about certain hysterical emotional states that, I'll just say this, from my perspective, were very unpleasant. It was really, really not fun. It was really, really not fun. I did not enjoy it at all. And while I would say the 13.5-hour video is good to talk about stuff, and it was definitely, that was very, very different, and that was not fun or pleasant at all. And I just outright deleted that video because I just never wanted to hear that again. And like I said, there's a few videos where I left a tiny bit, where I had a small, brief laughing fit, but it was absolutely nothing compared to the other two things, which are both different. I guess the best way to describe it is the tiny little laughing fits, where I was like 30 seconds in some videos I've left in, is like a little candle. Like you'd, just put in the corner of a room, just a tiny little candle. Whereas the stuff when I was younger is like a outright forest fire, where entire acres of forest are burned to the ground. And the 13-hour video thing that is deleted, that you're never going to fucking hear, where I was particularly like, I re-recorded a small clip out of it by recording the recording, but I did a part where I did the Scatman song, and a part where I was just like singing the Bendy song and then bitching about how long the video, how I'd been 10 hours into that video and I was redoing a song. My voice is a bit hoarse, but for the most part I was cheered up, not so I don't know, mental breakdown situation. But I do think it's good for people to be able to talk about and express their feelings and emotions, to be able to understand themselves better and to perhaps make progress. But at the same time, it's just, there was a lot of things that were on my mind, and I was very, very, very upset. So I cried a lot while screaming and laughing at the same time. But that wasn't a feeling like the things when I was younger, the hyperventing, that was more so a feeling of, just helplessness and fear and terror. Whereas the thing during the 13th hour, almost 14-hour video was more so, it was just overwhelmingly feeling sad. And just very sad. Best way to put it. So, but like I said, I do want to encourage other people to either talk about their feelings or to go walk on bike trails or listen to music or listen to nightcore or privately letting yourself cry to vent certain feelings to help you feel better, or to play a video game you like, or to sing karaoke, or learn a foreign language, or learn to draw, or learn to play an instrument, or go to the gym more. Just be careful with your limitations. Don't lift too much. Other than that, getting good sleep or eating better is always a better option. You should eat healthy, but also you should eat foods you enjoy. So if occasionally you want to eat something like cake or ice cream or something, that's fine. It's like going to the gym. It shouldn't take over your life, it should supplement it. All things you add to your life shouldn't take over your life or make it worse. It should be something that, even if it is a little bit of a temporary suffering in certain things, like, say, doing a bunch of push-ups or jogging, as long as you're not doing it where it hurts too much or you're injuring yourself, you are doing something a little unpleasant with the interest of improving yourself and growing as a person, whether it's losing fat, getting stronger, improving your cardiovascular health, or improving your mental health. And that is something I want to try to encourage to people, that especially if you're somebody who has like depression or issues from, things that were not pleasant, whether it's from a natural predisposition or predisposed personality you have, or circumstances that were not happy for you that you are working on, or even just certain conflicting experiences you've had, that it's good for you to take time to think about things and to sometimes vent emotions about it. And of course, sometimes you are too emotional. You can just give it some time, put it on the back burner, maybe play a different type of music, go somewhere else and focus on something else, then come back to it. Sometimes you can treat it as a project that you do in little pieces, so that way it's not so overwhelming, but you're still making progress. It's kind of like the idea of going to a gym. You don't want to injure yourself, but going to the gym and doing a little bit here and there is going to help you. Even a little, especially if you're someone new to physical fitness, doing just a little bit of physical fitness, a little bit at a time, it's always better to do something rather than nothing, but you don't want to do too much either. So, you don't want to be lazy, but you don't want to burn yourself out. The best way to put it is this: whether it's any of these things, whether it's going to the gym or anything in life, you should be able to find a balance. Now, I'm perhaps not the best person to describe to you how to best do that, but I can at least very authoritatively describe the importance of it. And all in all, I'd say the most important things is just be kind to yourself and be kind to others. And just take every day one at a time. And some days you'll have bad days. Some days you'll have very bad days. Some days you'll have very bad days, multiple in a row, back to back. And I would say it's normal, but I can't say I'm really just adequate to describe the term normal, but I'd say, at least in terms of what I'm describing, yes, is no matter what, it's going to be an ongoing journey for you. It's never going to be suddenly, oh, you had this one really good day, so everything's better from that point on forever and ever. No. There will be bad days. Maybe as things improve, they'll be more mild and fewer and far between, to the point that you might go longer periods of time without it. But it's not like you have to reach some magical benchmark to say that you're better or that things will be better. Nor should you feel, like it's hopeless and meaningless to try, that no matter what you do, there will always possibly be a bad day around the corner. At the end of the day, you shouldn't be consumed with trying to hit some sort of point to where you feel like, okay, you finally crossed the threshold of to where it's better. You should just focus on being better. And if it is, cool. And if not, then don't beat yourself up over it. You're just being too hard on yourself about a lot of things, especially many things that you have no control or power over. All you can do is just think about things and understand things better. Understand the world around yourself better. Understand yourself better. And think more clearly about who you are as a person, who you want to be, what you want to do, and how to do it. But don't make your life focused on that. Just focus on life itself. You can steer it in a certain direction and improve it, and you can certainly work toward goals. But just be happy. And even if you're not feeling happy that day, well, don't let that get you down. And yeah, sometimes letting it down, vent some stuff, isn't that bad either. Like I said, it's good to express your feelings. As long as you're not hurting it yourself, as long as you're not hurting yourself and hurting anyone else, it's fine. I am very strongly suggesting to people to sing karaoke. Even if you're a bad singer. I mean, I'm terrible at singing, but I enjoy singing. So that's the thing. I enjoy singing. But yeah, I'm terrible at it. I'm not good at karaoke. But I like doing it, so I like singing. And especially, I very strongly recommend, of course, if you guys record a video, let me know. You can't link it, but you can tell me your channel and the name of the video, and I'll listen to it. But, like, there's lots of times I'll just sing karaoke to myself, and there's no one who can hear me at all in any way. There's sometimes when I'm in public, I'll just sing it in my head. I'm not moving my mouth, of course, but I'm just, just thinking about various songs and just getting into them a little bit. I think it's good for you, regardless of your skill or talent of singing, and regardless of what you think about your voice, or regardless what anyone else thinks about it. Even if you are terrible at singing, heck, even if you have a weak voice that makes it difficult to talk, even if your voice may sound different than what you think would be normal, it's still good for you to sing, as long as it's not causing you physical pain or that. I think it's good for you to sing karaoke. I think it's healthy for people. I think it's a good thing that can help people to just feel better and get through from day to day, as well as to be more in touch with their feelings and have more of a sense of catharsis. So I think it's good for people. But yeah, in general, I think I understand where the laughing noise that she's making is coming from, to the point that it's not necessarily a mocking or jest laugh. It's more of a systemic, uncontrolled, autonomous? I'm trying to think of a word that adequately describes the functions of the body carried out by the brain stem. Because technically your brain is separated into three categories. There's your cerebrum, which is, it's mainly the stuff of your personality, your memories, your intelligence. But then there's the parts of your brain that's, and of course your cerebrum is the biggest part, but the other part is, second biggest part is more about your motor coordination. It's the control about how your body works, like skills, like riding a bicycle or walking. But then there's your brainstem does a lot of stuff that you do unconsciously, like regulating your sleep schedule, or breathing, or digestion of food, or how your blood vessels work inside your body. You don't have to constantly think, okay, I need to digest this thing correctly, so I need to think so my stomach moves this one way. Like, no. Whereas, same thing with hyperventilation, it's not a controlled thing. It's something like, can you control your body whether or not it digests things or not? No. Hyperventilation is the same thing. You can't actually control it. You can try to influence it, but to a degree, when it's happening, it's not something you can do anything about. So it's like saying, can you control your body's digestion or the beating of your heart? I'm sure there's some like Tibetan monk out there that can do that. Like, I've spent all these hours meditating, so I can now control the exact acidity of my stomach. Or something like that. But, I mean, there are some monks who actually could like survive lower temperatures without suffering hypothermia because they had meditated. Now, how you actually do that and how they alter their body's temperature, I don't know. I'm just saying it's possible, but it's not. It is far from the realm of what an ordinary person or someone like me would do or want to take the effort to do. Don't worry. I'll save you. Rena took one step forward, still holding the axe high above her head. Now then. One step closer, Rena's face spread out to fill my vision. Speak. One step closer. Rena's nose was close enough to touch mine, and was still pushing closer. There's something you want to say, isn't there? I'll listen. I'll save you, okay? Speak, okay? Speak, okay? I slumped down, landing squarely on my butt. It wasn't for some pathetic reason. It was all I could do to get away from Rena. Laughing noises. I had the gut feeling that I couldn't let her laughter end, because when the laughing ended, the moment I picked up on that feeling, my body moved by instinct. I sprained my feet so fast even I couldn't believe it and pushed Rena away with both hands. Rena was as light as a feather. Thrown about by my unbalanced weight of the axe, she was sent backwards as if she had been carried off by the wind. After confirming that out of the corner of my eye, I dashed off at full speed. I was the perfect picture of fleeing like a greased pig. Get away from Rena. Run away. Survive. I couldn't think of anything other than this. While I was running, I remembered I'd been holding on to a bat for the entire time, such a worthless weapon. I couldn't believe I'd forgotten about this weapon at such an important time. I sped even further down the winding path. I didn't even feel myself gasping for breath or my legs getting heavy. My body understood it as well. If I didn't run away from here, I wouldn't live. I could hear the laughter of this simulacrum of Rena coming from behind me. It rang through the trees and in my head and slowly chiseled away at my sanity. The grove of trees thinned out, my field of vision suddenly expanding. Where was this? For a moment I was bewildered by the scenery. I felt I knew, but I couldn't quite remember. I quickly realized I was at the dam site. The fact that I dashed madly and ended up in a place like this gave me a bad feeling, like I was following someone's scripted plot. I had a good view of my surroundings, but didn't see a single soul here. This was a terrible spot for someone on the run, but there was no better place for an attacker. My heart was already on the verge of bursting. The muscles of my legs were screaming. But I didn't care. If I stopped here, then they might not even be able to scream for much longer. Even still, I glanced back looking for an excuse to rest. Rena wasn't there. Instead, I saw two villagers walking around. I moved a sigh of relief that it wasn't Rena, but a third party. Except the voice inside me rang alarm once again. Villagers walking around weren't suspicious in of themselves, but it bothered me. They both wore rough-looking clothes, Empty-handed, they definitely gave the impression that they were just out for a walk. But at this time of day, two adults wandering around without purpose, that was enough to raise questions. But more than anything else, those eyes. They weren't chit-chatting while walking. They were both silent, heading forward, looking in my direction. Was I at the end of my rope, and had finally started imagining things? I should run away. That was probably the best choice. If they weren't involved, I'd lose them easily by running. If they were part of the group after me, then they would come running after me. Either way, unless I hurried, Rena would catch up with me. That's right, I was going to run. Deciding that, the moment I began to turn tail, both of them rushed toward me, as if they knew exactly what I was thinking. Somewhere inside me, I had jumped to the conclusion that Rena was the only thing that I needed to be afraid of. I made the assumption that I didn't need to fear anything else, but right now I realized just how blatantly wrong I was. Suddenly, the story of Oshi-san told me about the demons all leaving the village to hunt prey floated through the back of my mind. I could tell they were both coming after me without even turning around because of their frenetic footsteps. It was frightening, being unable to shake Rena off as she slowly closed in on me, but this didn't even compare. Being pursued with such violent ferocity, this straightforward horror was unparalleled. One of the pursuer's arms grazed my shoulder. Now it wasn't just their frenzied footsteps, but also the distinct sound of their breathing that I could hear. No, I could practically feel them breathing on me. They were already right behind me. Calm down, Keiichimabara. Still running at full tilt, I felt the surrounding area go still. No, it felt like time itself had stopped. I turned my head back slightly in the frozen world, realizing how close my pursuers had gotten to me. I couldn't win against the legs of an adult. In less than the time it would take to blink twice, when this frozen time began to move again, they'd be right on top of me, and then... Don't think about that, Keiichi. First, realize that you won't be able to shake them off like this. If the fact that you can't get away was a given, then you need to make a decision. Go with the right leg or with the left. You just need to decide which one. Let's go with the left. The moment I decided that, the temporal singularity burst into pieces. Right. Left. I swung the bat in a wide arc with my right arm. Using that inertia, I stopped, and suddenly spun. What? The two of them were clearly startled. Momentarily losing sight of me, both of their outstretched arms ready to grab me instead, grasped at an empty space. The man on the right, I applaud him for being able to figure it out, spun around to the spot I shouldn't have been, and faced me in astonishment. But it was too late. I didn't even need to swing the bat. All I needed to do was extend my arms as they turned around. It was by no means a heavy blow, but it seemed like it had enough power behind it to knock him off his feet. But just knocking him down wasn't enough to scare him away. He got back up in no time. Both of them took a fighting stance and were ready to face me. This made me certain they weren't just two people out for a walk. They were clearly after me. It felt much easier than dealing with Rena. Just by not recognizing their faces, by not knowing them, it made things easier. I smiled wryly on the inside. What do you want with me? Next one is going to be right in your face, you bastard. It's fine if it was just a bluff. But by barking out at them, I was able to fire myself up. They didn't respond. They spread out to either side of me with unbelievable calm expressions on their face. One of them would grab onto my bat, and the other one hold me down. Was that their plan? Taking on both of them at once would be impossible. Hot sweat poured out from every pore in my body. Then I'd just have to settle with the first move. I'd step in and strike the first one down. Narrowing my target down to the man on the right, who had already been knocked down before, I stepped in and swung with all my might. And I'll say this, it really doesn't take that much force with a bat to be lethal. Technically, you're already fully grown height. But I was already 5'11" when I was 13. Unless I'm remembering that wrong, but... So, you're already tall and basically the way you're going to look as an adult by the time you're that age. So, technically at that age, someone at that age could swing with enough force with a bat to kill somebody, even if they're like Arnold Schwarzenegger and in like their 40s. There was no way for an unarmed person to guard against it. It would cause immense damage. If they blocked it with their arm, their bone would snap like a twig. If they turned their back to it, then it would possibly the blow would travel all the way to the vital organs. It looked like he was aware of this. He pushed further then the kill zone between us and delivered a fist right into my gut. Not good. With this distance, this position, and this stance, there's no way for me to dodge it. The world flipped upside down. I understood that I was being tossed around like a rag doll. I landed on the soft earth without a sound, feeling the grainy soil press against my face. It didn't hurt at all. But the moment I thought that, I suddenly felt a pain coming from the abrasions on my skin, as well as the contents of my stomach being forced upwards, flooding my mouth with a bitter sensation. I knew very well that I didn't have the time to relish this experience. I stood up as quick as I could. But at that moment, the other man was already barreling toward me. Being able to comprehend calmly that I simply couldn't dodge it made it more upsetting. I actually know this feeling when it's like when time slows down and you're like, well, that's gonna suck, but I can't do anything. Fuck. After plowing into my stomach full force once again, the assailant twisted around behind me and locked his thick arm around my neck. My throat felt like it was being crushed by his immense strength. I couldn't even contemplate that I was being strangled, or that I was about to go unconscious. My vision simply darkened, and a silent whining sound began playing deep inside my mind. It took everything I had to keep myself from blacking out. While this was happening, the other man was once more likely standing in front of me. I wasn't able to open my eyes, but I could feel that he was there. There was nothing I could do now. Unable to shake his arm off me, I couldn't run, I couldn't fight back. Dire straits. I couldn't even come up with a phrase that inadequately described my situation. A familiar ceiling. The smell of the bed and pillows. I knew them well. Was this my room? Normally there wouldn't be anyone in my room besides me, but their presence made me spring wide awake. When I did that, the pain shot throughout my entire body. Feeling all right? Feeling all right? I think you'd better just lie down for a bit. Why was Rena in my room? Blood began to surge through my muscles and my capillaries. But Rena's smile belonged to the Rena I knew well. I knew I shouldn't let myself feel this way. But I relaxed, thinking that this was the version of the Rena that was safe. Why am I... Don't you remember? After losing consciousness, nothing at all. My body had become more lethargic than I could ever imagined. I guess that would be expected outcome after exerting everything I had back there. I tried to at least clear my head, but I just couldn't shake the sluggish feeling out of my mind. I called the doctor. He should be here soon. I think you better just lie down until then. I wasn't injured seriously enough to merit calling a doctor. But knowing that someone impartial was coming was slightly reassuring. Why am I here? I'm sure I was at the dam site. That's what I want to know. What happened? When I got there, Keiichi-kun was already passed out. That's why I'm the one who wants to know. I was attacked by two weirdos. As I talked about it, I finally remembered what happened right before I passed out. Recalling that memory and the terror that went along with it caused the fogginess around my head to clear right up. Let's forget about those two for now. I didn't expect Rena to be nursing me. I thought Rena was trying to kill me. She would have had the perfect chance while I was unconscious. Not only did she not kill me, she had nursed me back to health. Amazing you could drag me all the way back here. Wasn't I heavy? Looking at Rena's delicate frame, it was hard to believe that she had not only gotten me back home, but even dragged me all the way up to the second floor. Did she have some help? Don't you remember, Keiichi-kun? Rena appeared a bit surprised, but still kept her smile. I only propped you up on my shoulder. You said you could walk on your own, and that you were fine. You don't remember? I didn't remember. My memory was fuzzy after that point, when I lost consciousness. What about those two? Huh? When you got there, Rena, the ones with me, or rather those two guys. There wasn't anyone. She said it bluntly. The way she stated it felt slightly unpleasant. I was just too timid at that time. I might have been able to force some answers out of Rena, but if I did that, then this kind Rena might transform into the scary Rena, who I didn't know. Fearing that, I didn't press any further. Thinking about it, it was the obvious choice. If both of those men were there, I didn't think Rena would even have stood a chance. I couldn't find a way to explain it unless I assumed she brought me here after those two were already gone. Rena was still smiling. Her eyes sparkled warmly. Yet. I felt like I was hallucinating when I saw something. Something akin to a shadow, slowly creeping across her face. Oh yeah, Shirasama, I'm talking to my friend. Can you wait before you possess her? That small omen sent shivers down my spine. While Rena was still Rena, I needed to make contact. I needed to contact Oshi-san. Rena stopped me when I tried to get out of bed. She said it would aggravate my wounds, so I should sleep. I'd like to go to the bathroom, though. Sorry. Rena couldn't say anything else. While Rena stayed in the room, I quickly went downstairs to get the phone received in the living room. When I approached the front door, the doorbell rang. Ding dong. It must have been the doctor Rena had called. It's probably me on. It was strange for a patient to welcome in the doctor who was making a house call, but it would be incredibly reassuring to have him here for the considerable time it would take Oshi-san to get here. I carelessly opened the door with that simple assumption and regretted it almost instantly. Me on? Well, at least I know it was you and not, Rena that put the needle in my food. You are not a good cook. The food had an almost metallic flavor,